Whatculture.
Psychopaths are, broadly speaking, unable to feel empathy, fear, or emotions. They feel no compassion and have no problem with tricking, manipulating, harming, or stepping on others to get their own way, just like your dad. Because psychopathy is a complex and mysterious condition that we still don't fully understand, psychopaths can sometimes be tricky to define, but luckily, we've assembled this foolproof and totally scientific list to help. I'm Ben from Whatculture, and here are 8 ways to tell if you're a psychopath. Number 8. Psychopath or sociopath? Psychopath and sociopath tend to be used practically interchangeably, but they are definitely not the same thing. Whilst the two display similar antisocial tendencies, sociopaths tend to struggle more emotionally. They are more prone to outbursts and have trouble fitting in with mainstream society. They have the same disdain for law and conventions, but in a more disorganized way. Psychopaths, on the other hand, are not subject to emotions and empathy. This conversely makes them much better at slipping comfortably into society, and they're usually very good at mimicking social norms. Number 7. Is it in your genes? There are some who theorize about the psychopath from an evolutionary perspective. Although it seems like an unlikely trait to pass on, there are certain aspects of psychopathy that would actually make them incredibly successful, evolutionarily speaking. In the context of our ancient ancestors, risky behavior, competitiveness, and the goal-orientated nature of psychopathy are all good survival strategies. It is, however, the antisocial nature of psychopaths that might have prevented it from becoming an overwhelmingly common trait. Anthropologists think that it's the cooperative side of human nature that is responsible for much of our evolutionary success. The aversion to altruism in psychopaths would likely have kept them as a fringe group, but one that perpetuates all the same. Number 6. Is it in your gender? Male psychopaths seem to vastly outnumber female psychopaths, but that could be that we're just not as good at spotting them. For a start, most of our figures on psychopaths come from prison inmates. Prisoners are the ones that got caught, and so some theorize that the lack of female psychopaths on the records could be that they managed to get away with it, because we don't expect women to commit such crimes. In addition, the aggression gene that has been linked to violent psychopathy, MAOA, is passed down in the X chromosome. Females receive 2 X chromosomes, and so the effect of the gene could be diluted out, but males only receive 1, and therefore MAOA is more likely to be expressed. Number 5. Hooked on dopamine? Dopamine is one of those neurotransmitters in your brain that falls into the feel-good category. In a study at the Vanderbilt University in Nashville, it was found that psychopaths' brains produce much higher levels of dopamine than non-psychopaths. They also found that the psychopathic brain values it much more than a normal brain. The dopamine high from engaging in antisocial behavior could be as addictive to a psychopath as drugs or alcohol are to an addict. Number 4. Are you a normal psychopath? When we think of psychopaths, like you do, it's the criminal psychopath that tends to spring to mind. While those psychopaths definitely exist, the stereotype of the violent psychopath perpetuates because those are the ones that are easiest to study. Plus, the psychopaths that go on to commit terrible crimes tend to be the ones that attract our attention the most. A psychopath that lives a relatively private, non-violent life is unlikely to either come to the attention of a psychiatrist nor seek the help of one. Number 3. Are you a prosocial psychopath? It is now thought by many that what type of psychopath a person turns out to be is as much to do with their upbringing, and that those with a stable, caring start in life are more likely to grow up into prosocial psychopaths. One such example of this is a neuroscientist by the name of James Fallon. Fallon comes from a long line of psychopaths, and while his career as a neuroscientist was mostly focused on studying the brains of psychopaths and violent criminals, when he found out about his heritage, he knew just what to look for. When Fallon scanned his own brain, however, the results were that of a textbook psychopath. The supportive early years for the prosocial psychopath could mean that, although he still lacks empathy and emotion, he finds that behaving positively in society can offer as many personal advantages as behaving negatively. Number 2. Do you speak like a psychopath? Researchers at Cornell University interviewed 52 convicted murderers, 14 of which were diagnosed psychopaths, and then fed their responses into a computer for analysis. They found that the psychopathic killers have a few distinguishing traits in their speech that non-psychopathic killers lack. Because the psychopaths have no emotional responses to the crimes they commit, they tend to speak about them in a much more detached manner, often describing them in the past tense. Non-psychopaths are also much more likely to talk about or even justify their actions with higher levels of needs, such as family and self-esteem, whereas psychopaths tend to stick to the more primal need for resources, such as food or money. Number 1. How do you score in psychopathy tests? Professor Robert Hare, a criminal psychologist, is the man credited for devising the official PCLR, or psychopath test. This test is simple enough and relates to a list of 20 traits with the subject scoring dependent on how much they apply to them. In case you're wondering, I scored 4, which means I display no psychopathic tendencies and I'm a very good boy, thank you. Obviously, you need to be seen by an actual professional for any kind of official diagnosis, but there are plenty of tests all over the internet intended for educational purposes that can give you a vague idea as to where you score on the psychopathic scale. And that's our list. Make sure you subscribe to the Whatculture YouTube channel for more lists like this, and don't forget to visit whatculture.com for daily news and articles. I'm Ben from Whatculture, and thanks for watching.
Oh, hello there. I'm billionaire philanthropist, not Bruce Wayne, and as you may have heard, we've actually started up a Whatculture comics channel. Oh, that's better. Where you can go for all the comics lists, all the comics news, and all the comics discussion. So go and subscribe to Whatculture Comics for loads of amazing comics coverage.